Hi everyone. Again, I'm Mark. I'm the founder of the Arts and Culture Network. We're a growing global community of creatives. There are I think we've just tipped over 180,000 across our 8 arts and culture LinkedIn groups. I don't get to meet everybody, but when I do, it's a pleasure, and that is absolutely the case today. Michelle Ann has joined me from the Space Between. Michelle, thank you so much for joining me today for this.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
It's lovely to have you here, and thank you again for being one of our full members. We're member funded as a community at something like £10 a month or the equivalent, so that we can remain independent. Um, so it's very much appreciated that you've joined us as a full member. We're going to have some fun today. I'm going to give you a chance to say hi to everyone, and then I'm going to create your fantasy cultural year from the answers to some easy questions to which there are no wrong answers. Um,
Okay.
I have a time machine and a magic wand at my disposal as well. So it will
Nice.
be fun. So, Michelle, it's all yours. Perhaps you could say hi to everyone and let us know where you're based. I know you flit around, and tell us a little bit more about the space between.
Okay, perfect. So, hi, I'm Michelle Ann, founder and CEO of The Space Between. We are based physically in kind of between South Wales and London, as well as the USA. Obviously, I'm American, but we operate globally. So our services are available to everyone across the globe. And The Space Between, it started out as what I wished I had had as an aspiring performance artist, which is a source of holistic well-being support as well as mentoring specifically for musicians and actors at this time, but expanding. And the holistic well-being services are provided by a team of 30 amazing associates that we have on board offering multiple modalities for both some preventative services to help artists new on their path, some crisis intervention as well. There's something for everyone.
Sounds great. Much needed, the
Yes.
kind of support. So, on behalf of the many, many people you will already have helped, thank you very much for doing what you
Thank
do.
you.
That's great. Now, that's given me some inspiration for your fantasy cultural year. I'm going to give you a global project. So,
Okay.
for a year-long global project, I think it's given me some ideas. Now, in order to place you somewhere in the world, I need to ask you, what's your favorite building?
Oh gosh, do I have a specific favorite building? Um, I mean, I don't know that I have a specific favorite building. This is horrible, but definitely I like sort of a Gothic type buildings that one would find. Well, oh gosh, I'm split between Gothic and Tudor type buildings.
I've got an idea. I've got an idea for um, the Gothic.
Okay.
Um, and let me show you where. Here we go. Um, I'll share my screen and see if this will do. Um, there we go. The St. Pancras Hotel in London.
Yes.
Does that look sufficiently Gothic for you?
Absolutely. I love it so much.
I know it's a wonderful place inside as well. Look, there we
Yes.
go. So, I'd like you to imagine you're sitting at a bar with this St. Pancras Hotel in view. Okay. It's somewhere on
Okay.
the pavement here. Okay.
Yes.
Um, it's June, it's 6 p.m., it's sunny and warm, and you're sitting there at a pop-up cafe and there's a drink on the table next to you. What would we find there?
Whiskey. Whiskey neat with a couple of ice cubes.
Oh, fantastic. A neat whiskey with a couple of ice cubes next to the Gothic St. Pancras Hotel in London. Fantastic. Now there's a book on the table next to you. It could be your favorite book. It could be a book that's been with you all your life, or it could be a recent discovery. What book would we find there?
It's a book called The Techno-Pagan Octopus Messiah.
Trips off the tongue beautifully.
It does, it does.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look. I can't. I just want to see what the cover looks like almost. So it's called the what? The
Techno-Pagan Octopus Messiah.
techno pagan
Pagan.
octopus.
Yes, Messiah.
Wow. How to get four wonderfully unconnected things into a sentence. That's just
It's
genius.
true.
Techno pagan. Oh, there we go. Uh, by uh, Ian Muir.
That is him.
And he looks a bit, oh my gosh, I've got to show everyone this. This is such an eye-opener into your preferences. Is that him?
It's him on the right. And the gentleman on the left, his name is David Holthouse. I actually met Ian and discovered this book through David Holthouse on the left.
Fantastic. Oh, look at that. The techno-pagan octopus messiah. Um, what on earth is it about? Here we go. It's on Amazon. You can get it. Inventive, brilliantly realized characters. The book displays a rampant thirst for mysticism and self-discovery. One cannot help being won over by Wynn's enthusiasm and intellectual energy. Love that. Excellent. Now, what a picture that's forming in our minds. It's wonderful, isn't it? Um, and you've got your headphones on and Spotify is playing. What are we hearing?
Right now, one of my absolute favorites is Chimpanzee, and they are a prog band based in South Wales, actually.
Wow, that sounds as though it might be up my street. I'm a huge Dream Theater fan, so they might be a little
Uh,
bit. So they're called Chimpanzee.
Chimpanzee, yes.
How do you spell that then? This is great.
C Chimpan, capital A.
Chimpanzee music band. There we go. Um, Formed in 2006, was a project featuring Bob Reed, better known for his work in the prog rock band Magenta, and two members of country rock band The Stories, Rob Thompson and Steve Balsamo. Fantastic. Right, I'm going to have to listen to them. Wonderful. I'll just show everyone the band quickly. There we go. There we are, Chimpanzee.
There they are,
There
yes.
they are. Fantastic. There'll be lots of images on there. Fantastic. I'm absolutely going to be listening to that later.
Oh,
Wonderful.
I love that. I did
Yeah.
not know that you that you love Prague. I'll tell you a story
Oh,
later about my connection to Dream Theater.
please tell it now. Tell it
Oh,
now.
so the my beginnings in the music industry stem from having myself been an aspiring singer when I was quite young, and then choosing the backstage world rather than being on stage. And the first band that I managed was actually my ex-fiance in my early 20s. We were living in South Florida, and the drummer for his band was Mike Mangini, who yeah. So this was the level of talent that I was working with in the very first band that I worked for. So Mike Mangini, the Dream Theater connection is that you apparently know is that when Mike Portnoy stepped away for several years, Mike Mangini very, very talentedly, that's not a word. He filled his shoes very well.
He did. I watched the videos of all the auditions on YouTube, and I mean, fastest single stroke role in the business.
Yes,
I mean, it couldn't have been any of the others. It was
exactly.
right up there and did a fantastic job on The Astonishing and all the other albums that they did. But it's fun to see Mike Portnoy back.
Yes.
But yeah, fantastic. Oh, that's a great story. I love that. They were. I've seen them live 3 times. I saw The Astonishing, which is the kind of rock opera thing, I saw that live, played live at the Palladium in London, and
Wow.
that was great. And then they, on one year, they weren't doing London. The closest was Turin. So my wife and I flew to Turin for the concert. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's some venue for a concert, or some city for a concert, rather.
yeah. Oh, it was great. I love it. I mean, the musicianship is just staggering. Dark Side of the Moon, arguably better than the original, played
Uh,
straight through in a live show. I mean, come on,
yes.
doesn't get much better than that.
No,
Wonderful.
it's true. It's true. And I love, like, there's lots of great music in the world, but true musicianship is different than great music, I think, right? Or can be.
Yeah. Some of John Petrucci's guitar solos feature on a joy list that I've got that can make the hair stand up. Change of seasons, wither. Um, oh, yeah, fantastic stuff. There's one video on YouTube where somebody who clearly adores his guitar playing is in the audience, and she's almost in tears because she's
Mm.
there listening to it live. Fantastic. Wonderful. There we go. A quick diversion. Fantastic. So we could finish now because I have everything I need to know about you. It's Gothic architecture, it's whiskey, it's a crazy book, which just looks fantastic, and a wonderful South Wales prog band. Fantastic. All those four things could have been very different, but it all sums up. It's you. It's brilliant. However, we're going to move on, right? So
Okay.
that's great. Now, you've just come from a meeting inside the St. Pancras Hotel, that Gothic splendor, with a wealthy London-based family foundation who like to support um, artists and creatives. Okay. They got wind of the work that you and your associates have been doing, and they would like to hire you for a year to travel the world with selected associates to do workshops a week at a time in different cities around the world. Okay.
Right.
Because they're investing in the well-being and holistic um, approach to musicians and actors around the world. That's what they'd like you to do. The
Okay.
fee is enormous. Okay. The travel is first class. A TV crew will follow you. There's a book deal in it. There is a TED talk in it. And there is a global university lecture tour afterwards. There is TV interviews. You're the go-to person for well-being in the creative industry. You're inundated with requests to speak at um, top conferences and events, and so it's a gift that just keeps giving, right? And the associates do well out of it, and you're become a magnet for creatives all over the world who need that kind of support. Okay, business is
Okay.
flourishing. Does that sound like fun?
Absolutely.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Let's manifest all of that.
Yeah, I'm manifesting it for you. So we need to get you off to somewhere. So what all I need to know is, what city would you want to start in? You can go anywhere in the world. Where would you like to go?
It almost feels cliche, but it's also not cliche for me to at Los Angeles. I would really love to go to LA, for a few reasons, but obviously there's a very deep music industry history there, but also there is a very deep need for care and support there. LA is known for kind of burning people out,
Yeah,
so
yeah. Okay.
definitely LA.
You're on the plane. Okay. You turned left when you got on the plane. The steward brings you a whiskey over ice and a note from the family foundation. They've got a little musical challenge for you. They would like you to limit your musical listening to one very specific genre or type of music for 12 months. What are you going to choose?
It's going to be it's will sound broad, but rock music is my first love. If I had to really narrow it from there. I sort of love the 80s sound of double guitar and double bass drums, sort of a Queensryche sort of really big kind of sound.
Hmm.
But rock in that sense.
Metal edged.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Love it. Excellent. Um, that's yours. You can listen to somebody rather cleverly said I'd listen to live music. I said, no, 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 that's not how it works. Um, excellent. Now, we arrive in LA and a group of young musicians and actors take you under their wing and they whisk you into a beautiful Hollywood home where which is your base while you're there. Beverly Hills, probably, unless there's anywhere else you'd like to be. And they say, right, make yourself at home, unpack, relax. We're going to come back later. We're going to take you to a dance performance and then out to dinner. Now, this is where the magic wand and the time machine come in because I can put any dance performance on a stage in front of you. So it could be any dance group, any style, any dancers, historical, it could be in the past. What if I could put any dance-based performance on the stage in front of you? What would we watch?
We would watch ballet and we would watch specifically Mikhail Baryshnikov at the height of his career in The Sleeping Beauty.
Wow. Yes, it's yours. Fantastic. And what about dinner? You don't have to stay in American culture. You LA has restaurants from all over the world. So what would your cuisine of choice be, Michelle?
So if I was in LA, I would probably have a really great sushi, to be honest, just because it's proximity to the coast. And even though sushi isn't from LA, but it's definitely got one or two great sushi places.
Nice. That's lovely. Yeah, I love a bit of sushi. Okay, we're going to fly to another country, anywhere in the world. Where are we going?
To Italy.
Nice. Whereabouts in Italy would you like to be?
I would like to be in Tuscany.
Hmm.
Um, which there's a couple of different places, but we can go with the Florence sort of area between Florence and Siena, maybe. Um,
Nice.
again, a bit known for their art, well, lots of places known for arts in Italy, but yeah, definitely in that area.
Okay, lovely. I'm going to Florence in April for um my brother's birthday. So that's gonna I've never been. It's the Uffizi Gallery there, isn't it? I think.
Uh,
Yeah.
yes,
I can't
yes.
wait. The whole place is like a museum.
It really is. I mean, you can spend a day just walking outside in Florence. Actually, when we get off the call, I'll tell you this tiny little amazing place. It's a jewelry museum, is what it's called, but a man who handcrafts
Mm.
incredible pieces of jewelry that are art there. It's off the beaten path. I stumbled on it accidentally.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Um, excellent. Now, so we're in Florence. Okay, it's sport day. Okay, in Italy. We have breakdancing in the Olympics. We've got synchronized swimming, we've got dressage, we've got ice skating. Some sport is performance art. Okay.
Yes.
What would you like to watch for a couple of hours? I can put any sport in front of you.
So I really love mixed martial arts.
Do you?
Honestly, I do. I do. So
I can
obviously,
see you there, front row, whiskey, right? Whiskey in hand, some crazy friends around you, while two fellas are knocking 10 bells out of each other in the octagon.
exactly.
Oh,
Or like, where the art of it comes in, right? Like avoiding having that happen. I mean, the level of skill, really, when you get past the hard punches, the level of skill and nuance to be able to, when they're grappling, particularly, right, to get out of the holds and things like that. I
yeah,
mean, it is definitely an aggressive sport, but I do love it.
yeah. Good for you. Okay, we're still in Florence. Actually, we'll nip to Siena. Okay. In Siena, there is a in our fantasy world, there is a new art gallery. And in it, you put on some virtual reality headsets. So everything becomes 360 degrees, three-dimensional. There's movement and there's sound, and you can step into the work of a famous visual artist. Okay. It's a little bit like the Van Gogh room, but that's all projections, right? This is,
Right.
you're in it, you're in the painting. You can walk around, you can see in three dimensions what the artist could only show us in two. Whose work would you like to step into and explore in those circumstances?
Degas.
Degas, right? Let's have a look at
Yes.
some Degas for everybody. Who I'm sure people will. There we go. There he is, Edgar. Oh, yes. Lots of ballet.
Yes.
Okay, let's share
Ballet
that.
features heavily in my life.
Yeah, wonderful. There we go. Yes, where's a typical one? That's this. Yeah, wonderful. So you get to walk around in these rooms and these spaces. Fantastic.
Wow.
Love that. Excellent. Now, I'm going to whisk you back to London for a week with me. We're going out every evening together. We're going to do something cultural every evening, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. On Monday, we're going to go back in time to a concert of your choice. Tuesday, we're going to the theatre. Wednesday, we're going to a musical. Thursday, we're going to the opera. And Friday, we're going to the movies. And between us, we can choose what we see. So is there a concert, Michelle, that you went to, and if you could, you'd go back there like a shot to experience it again?
So my very first concert was Bruce Springsteen in the 80s. And
Mm,
and that really kind of set me up for disappointment, if I'm being honest, where other concerts were concerned thereafter, because for my first concert being a 4 hour set, right,
yeah,
of nonstop music and storytelling. So that was an incredible experience to have that I would love to live back in again that day of the early days of Bruce Springsteen.
that's a great one. Mine would have, the one I missed that I could have gone to is Bob Marley. I would have loved
Oh.
to do that. That would have been
Oh,
great.
see, I hadn't thought about ones that I've missed because they're I have
No, no,
missed.
that's a different question. Don't worry. That
Okay,
would be,
okay.
yeah. But I love that. That's a great one. Yeah, that set you up for disappointment for the rest of your musical intake. Yeah, I can quite see why. Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant. I love that. What about a theatre play? So we're in London. We've got Shakespeare's Globe um, in there, or any theatre play that you'd like to go and see.
I actually would love to see a live performance of Romeo and Juliet since you mentioned Shakespeare because I do tend to love sort of romantic, even though it's quite a sad romantic story in the end, but to actually feel the energy of those performances of the depth of love and the depth of the tragedy.
Yeah, great choice. Love it. Now, what about a West End or Broadway musical?
Oh, see, this one's very simple. The 96 revival of Jesus Christ Superstar, I would love
You're
to
full of
see.
surprises. I love it. These, I love it. That's good.
Well,
Brilliant.
see this, I'll thread this together for you. So, Chimpane, half of is Steve Balsamo, who was the lead he was Jesus in the 96 revival of Superstar on the West End, and who
Right.
also happens to be an ambassador for the Space Between, but that's just like got very lucky. But that performance that I've seen, YouTube clips of that he's sung Gethsemane in the
Mm,
years after that, I would have given anything to see. I have seen Ted Neely in Superstar here in the States. I would love to
mm.
have been able to see that revival, though.
Oh, I love it. That's great. And are you an opera buff?
I am. I am.
What are we going to see?
We are going to see Pavarotti in anything, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I don't even have a preference just to be able to see him perform live. I mean, his voice can take me into other realms just listening to the sound of it or in video, so I can't even imagine being in the room with him performing
Oh,
what that would be like.
can you imagine? Yeah. Yeah, we could do La Boheme. That would be good.
Okay.
Yeah. Fantastic choice. Now, for the film night, we've got, let's go to the Sphere in Las Vegas, shall we? Have you seen it?
Okay. I have seen it from the outside. I mean, I haven't been there physically, but I have seen it, yes.
Yeah, looks amazing. So we've got the
Yes.
best seats in the house. What movie are we watching together?
I feel like being there, it would need to be Avatar.
Ooh, great choice. Yeah. Can you imagine that? It's so that part of the film is behind your ears.
Yeah.
That's the amazing thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's under your chin, and it's just I'd love to go. I haven't had the chance to yet, but that looks amazing. We need to build one here. So
Truly.
fantastic. Excellent. That's been a great week. Thank you for that. Now we're nearly there, and you're going to go and travel the world and do this wonderful work. But I've got I'm giving you a lunch in we'll probably stay in Las Vegas, really, really top Michelin star restaurant in Las Vegas. Um, and you can invite any single person, living or not, famous or otherwise, from history if you wish, or present day, and they will come for a 2 hour leisurely lunch with you. Who would you choose?
Barbara Streisand. She just, I would love to understand what her voice is incredible. I think she's a brilliant actress, and producer, but also she part of my inspiration for this comes from the fact that somebody as incredible as she is speaks very candidly about her stage fright.
Yeah.
And just to be able to have a conversation and say, "Have you heard yourself sing?"
Yes.
Like help me to understand
Yeah,
how this can possibly be, and
I
then
know.
also just any amazingness about her life that she would love to share.
My children and I often in the car used to play the soundtrack from Yentl, and we would see who could last the longest for the last known piece of sky.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great choice. I love that. Now, in a slight twist to that question, who do you think Barbara Streisand would invite?
I mean, honestly, I think that because she found love later-ish in life, I think she would invite James Brolin, her husband,
Mm,
because she seems to have found a different sort of happiness, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's the in a, at least po political, religious, whatever sort of way, the person that she loves spending most time with, even though she can spend every day with him.
yeah, yeah. I wonder who she would choose who inspired her as a musician.
Oh,
Yeah,
as a musician,
as
gosh,
well.
I think Judy Garland, and who she
Yeah.
did little bits with a long time ago. I know she definitely spoke about Judy Garland, but I'm trying to remember.
I
But it's
think
been a
that would
while since.
probably be the number one choice, wouldn't it? I think that would be it.
Yeah.
This has been lovely. There's your fantasy cultural year done. That we've got surprises, anecdotes, conversational detours. Fantastic. Great job, Michelle. Thank you so much for being a good sport and doing that. I've got one more little uh, quiz I'd like to do with you if you've got time. Is that all right?
I do. Yes, yes.
This is the this or that game.
Okay.
I'm going to give you two options. You have to choose one. Okay.
Okay.
It's fast paced. Are you ready?
Yes.
Still or sparkling?
Sparkling.
Mac or PC?
PC.
Tea or coffee?
Time of day dependent coffee.
Radio or television?
Radio.
High heels or trainers?
High heels.
Peas or sprouts?
Sprouts.
Yes. Call them or message them.
Message them.
Window or aisle seat.
Aisle.
Milk or dark.
Dark.
Boiled or fried.
Boiled.
Comedy or horror.
Or
Concert hall or sports stadium.
concert hall.
Cat or dog.
Yes. But dog if I have to choose.
Test the water or dive in at the deep end.
Dive in at the deep end.
I knew that was you. I absolutely knew. I'm sick of you. You can't make all these wonderful selections and not dive in at the deep end. It's fantastic. Orange juice, pulp or no pulp?
Oh.
A library or a museum?
Sophie's choice. A museum.
Beethoven or Mozart?
Mozart.
Shower or bath?
No, Beethoven. Sorry, go
Okay.
ahead.
Shower or bath?
Ah,
Being cooking or being cooked for?
cooking.
Sand or snow?
Sand.
Reggae or salsa?
Oh. Salsa.
Indoors or outdoors?
Outdoors.
Android or iPhone?
Android.
Start immediately or wait until the last minute?
Start immediately.
Science or history?
Science.
New York
No,
or
history. Gosh, sorry.
New York or LA?
LA.
Early riser or night owl?
Night owl.
I became professionally nocturnal during lockdown.
Mm.
I work late. Red or white wine, madam?
Um, Red.
Batman or Superman?
Superman.
Numbers or words?
Words.
Rare or well done?
Rare.
Mild or spicy?
Spicy.
Rum or whiskey?
Whiskey.
Saw that coming. Um, Toilet paper, over or under?
Over. Always over.
We're an under household.
Really?
It comes down by the wall, yeah. Because if you've got cats or young children and they
Oh,
start,
okay.
it just winds up on itself. Bedroom door, open or closed?
Open.
And finally, see the future or change the past?
Can I say be in the present, but I guess see the future.
Yeah, it's got the lottery numbers in it.
Right. And literally my thoughts of changing the past, it's that butterfly effect thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. You could make some horrible mistakes in those situations.
Exactly.
Michelle, thank you so much for doing this and being such a good sport. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I
Um,
have so much. What great questions. Thank you.
it's been great fun. Thank you so much. Wherever this appears, there'll be information about you and links and more. And so thanks again for being one of our full members. It's very much appreciated. And don't rush off, but thank you so much. I hope you've had fun.
Yes, thank you so much. I have had a lot of fun and great manifestation exercise. Thank you.